everybody. This is Heidi St. John. Thanks for tuning in today. You guys, you are in luck because today my friend Dr. Mark Sherwood is on the program with me, and we're going to spend the next episode answering your questions. Stick around. I think you're going to be encouraged. Well, I'm glad you guys have joined me wherever you are listening today. We want to say thank you for sending such wonderful questions into the show. We really love reading through them and we love answering them. And so we're going to spend some time today doing that. If you would like to have your question answered by Dr. Mark Sherwood, the way to do that is to go to HeidiSt.John.com/Mailbox Monday. Please keep those questions right to the point if you can do that. Short and sweet and to the point. It's easier for us to get to them, and we're really thrilled to do that. Also, if you're a subscriber to the show, we're going to come back for happy hour today and answer a few more listener questions. And so we'll be giving you guys a little bit of a double dose of Dr. Mark Sherwood today, which I know you're encouraged by. So with that, I want to say, hey, my friend, Dr. Mark Sherwood, welcome back to the show.
Hey, it's good to see you today. Thanks for having me. I'm happy, as I said earlier before we went live, to be off the bench.
Hey, man, you are off the bench, and that's something I really appreciate about you.
Man. Here we
go. Well, you know, most people that are running for governor like you did last year are not bench warmers. So,
No,
I'm like, so that's good.
Hey, don't complain about it. Get in the game and get your licks in, man. Whatever.
That's right.
Take them too.
That's totally right. Hey, what did you think about Mike Johnson? We've got an awesome new Speaker of the House.
Yeah,
amazing.
I was very surprised by that, because you never know, because they were sort of bashing what they call the hardline conservatives. But in his acceptance speech, I thought he hit it in a nail. I mean, he hit it right out of the park. It was beautiful.
Phenomenal. I played that acceptance speech here at the show, and I'm telling you what, I think it's a mercy. I mean, I really do. I think it's just a mercy that the Lord allowed that to happen, because we got so many Republicans showboating around, and all these guys want to do is get on the headlines and make it to the news, and we got serious issues in the country to solve with not very serious people. So I was thrilled.
I was too. I think he is the right guy, and I think God really ordained that time and that man, because his demeanor is very character filled. It feels right, and people may not like where he stands, but I believe he's a person that can love people and have a conversation with people, even if they completely, totally disagree with him.
Yep, I agree. And he really is. I mean, he's right down the center line of conservatism. So I'm thrilled. Also, obviously, he loves the Lord. He's got a podcast that I just found out about too. It's called Truth Be Told with Mike and Kelly Johnson. So
Didn't know that.
I did not either. Yeah, I did not either. So for those of you who are listening and you're like, I wonder who this guy is, he and his wife have a podcast. It's called Truth Be Told with Mike and Kelly Johnson. So that's pretty cool. I'm excited about that. All right, my friend, you ready? Should we jump in?
We'll dive right in. Yes, ma'am.
All right. Sydney in Canada left us a message about vitamin K shots for newborns. She wants to know if you have any recommendations or specific products that she could use as an alternative to the standard vitamin K shot. So maybe you could start by just telling everybody why newborns are given vitamin K shots, and I'd love to hear your opinion on the whole thing.
Well, obviously they do the vitamin K shot so they get that clotting, to happen, right? And interestingly enough, when a child is born like that, about that, that certain time period where we do those circumcisions as a typical rule.
Eighth day,
that's when we need that vitamin K to come up, because in the body it goes down. So I don't know that necessarily that people really understand the significance of that. Nothing happens by happenstance, of course. So vitamin K, again, people need to know that that's not an abject synthetic thing. Vitamin K is a natural thing for the body. So it really is. But that can help with the clotting factor. I was doing some research a while back, and people that didn't take the K shot, right? Fine, it's your choice, were 81 times more likely to get abnormal bleeding.
What?
That was a lot. And I thought, well, okay. So, when people look at that, I'm all about people making their choice for their children.
Right.
Not that. But I think, statistics are what they are for a reason. We learn things and we adjust things, and we learn things and we adjust things.
So then, do you have any things that you suggest as alternatives? I know several women who are expecting right now, and I'm hearing a lot of them are saying, I don't want to do the vitamin K shot. A lot of that's coming from this now incredible distrust that we have in the medical community, which is rightfully earned, right? Now we're giving our, now when I was a kid, there were 12 vaccines, and now there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 70. It's ridiculous.
It's
and
terrible.
so it's terrible. And so you see these young mothers who are like, what the heck is going on? Which who can blame them?
Yeah. Well, obviously, when you look at B vitamins and things like that, they can create those platelets. So obviously, B vitamins would be something you certainly could consider. Newborns like that, you don't want to go an adult dose, no way. But you want to think about just a little bit of B vitamins, specifically B6, B12, and that would be things you might want to consider like that. This is.
But it doesn't sound like you're very opposed to the vitamin K shot.
Well, I think that I look at the cost benefit of this,
Yeah.
And I really do. I get it when people are saying, I don't want to do that. I really get that. But if I'm looking at my child there and I'm thinking, I know K is not going to quote unquote hurt me because it's a natural vitamin that I do produce in the gut, by the way. K1 is coming from plants and it's converted to K2 in the gut. I'm going to look at that kind of as a quote unquote natural thing instead of an unnatural thing.
I gotcha.
And so I kind of look at it like that and try to make a reasonable judgment on it. But I certainly see why people wouldn't do it because there's there's that hard line out there, and I have respect for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's these new mamas are really navigating a lot of choppy water in the healthcare industry right now. That is for sure. Angie in Tennessee wants to know if you've got any good remedies for toenail fungus. Nobody's got time for that.
Yeah. Obviously, that medication that you're given on that, Angie in Tennessee, is very wicked on the gut. So try to avoid that as long as you can. Try this. Get some coconut oil. I'm talking the raw white coconut oil. And
yeah, that's an antiviral.
That's antiviral, and it can be even antifungal. So begin to kind of put that on the toes there and the toenails and give it a little bit. Be very consistent with that. And then also, this is a side note, look inside of the body, maybe look at doing a micronutrients test to see what vitamins and minerals you could be missing. Because sometimes the fungus can get developed because your body doesn't get the fungal out of there. So think about doing those two things, upper end and lower end, I call it.
All right. Anonymous in Alabama, what are your thoughts on sleep training babies and toddlers? Did you sleep train your children? And if so, how and when?
Yeah, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. This is great. Obviously, when mom and dad, there's a certain age where the child, and I think a parent knows this, where you're like, okay, they need to start sleeping through the night. And that outburst of crying is not necessarily a hunger thing, it's a habit thing, right? So I think at that point, you've got to figure out a way to, and I'll use some terms that we understand in the Midwest, cowboy and cowgirl up, and let that baby work through that because it'll train them. Because, and that's a hard thing because you see your baby cry, you're like, oh no. But obviously, this is part of the training process because if you don't do that later on down the line, what does that create potentially? It creates the baby learns this behavior later on in life. And they learn they can cry and throw a fit and get your attention immediately. And that does not bode well for them going into early adulthood.
No, it really doesn't. And my sister, one of my younger sisters, had triplets several years ago.
Wow!
And I'm telling you what, respect.
How'd she do that?
It was a thing. I mean, I only pulled a night shift with her one time, and I was like, I'm out. We're gonna have to get some professional help because I can't do it. Well, she ended up having those little babies sleep train, and it's still benefiting her today. She said someone come over and just teach her how to sleep train those babies. Otherwise, it was going to kill my sister, right?
Yeah,
she had to be able to sleep.
You'd be up all night rolling around.
Oh, and she was just up all night long because when one was finished, the other one would want to eat. And so she was trying to get on a really good schedule, but she ended up sleep training those three little triplets, but then also her 2.5-year-old daughter. And it is still reaping benefits. So I also am a huge fan of sleep training. I think it's important. Christy in San Antonio, here's another question about parasites. I feel like we've been getting this question a lot. It says, can you please share information about parasite cleanses? Are they good? Are they bad? And should she do one?
Well, Christy, this is a popular question we're getting today because there's a lot of forums out there now that are talking about the danger of parasites being the end all be all, the cause of everything. I threatened to write a book one time called God Made Parasites, because he did. Now, having said that, Christy, in all seriousness, the parasites that are coming up in the body that would hurt the body, you might have troubles. You might have GI issues. You could have sudden weight loss, diarrhea, loose stool, and that's all bad.
Well, and
But
you would
no,
notice that, right? But
you
we're talking
would.
about people are like, I feel fine, but then this guy's like, you might have parasites. You should, you should go get a cleanse.
Yeah,
That's
I
the kind
just
of stuff
don't.
that I'm just like,
Yeah, I don't see the reason for just doing a parasite cleanse. I do stool testing all the time. And even as soon as yesterday, I went through a stool test with a person. And there are normal levels of parasitic activity up to a certain threshold that have been shown over time to not cause any problems. So, parasites, and I facetiously say this, but I'm serious. God made them, so there's got to be a purpose for them. I don't know all the purposes of everything, but I know that there's a purpose for everything in life. So to look at them as just get them all out, whatever, I think's a little bit too aggressive. If you have some symptoms that I've just described to you previously, you should probably go get tested and find out if parasites are there at a level that you don't need, and maybe even what parasites are there would be a good thing to do, and not just generally look at it as a blanket.
Yep, I agree. Excellent advice. Jen in North Carolina wants to know if vitamins really expire and are there any natural ways to improve varicose veins? This is a very nuanced question. Please tell me about vitamins and also varicose veins.
Yeah, so that way to hit both ends, Jen. So with varicose veins, obviously there's a lot of little procedures around and a lot of clinics around that do that, and they can kind of remove those things. I know some docs that do that here in our town, and they do a brilliant job, and it's a non-invasive procedure, very successful. So this unsightliness of that, obviously, you might want to get addressed. Backwards to the previous question, Jen, about do vitamins expire? It depends on how you define expiration. This is how you look at it. Real food has real expiration. In other words, it oxidizes, doesn't it? So if you have vitamins that are not really real and very poor, I suppose they wouldn't quote unquote expire. But if you have real food source vitamins, they will. Most reputable companies will have either a production date and or an expiration date on the bottle. Generally speaking, that window time is about 18 months to 2 years. There are some variables there, such as humidity, heat, exposure to light, etc. So all that matters. If it were me, I would pay attention to the vitamins and get a high quality source, of course. And then if it got up to about a year, I would probably not take a chance at that point and think more just to replace them.
Yep. All right. An anonymous listener wrote in to say, Dear Mark Sherwood, my husband appears to have phimosis, and online suggestions are steroids or circumcision. What do you recommend? We are not opposed to circumcision, but my husband is very private. If you want to recommend steroids, can you speak on their safety or side effects, and what steroids do you recommend? That's a big question.
Yeah, well, certainly starting off with the steroid cream. So phimosis, so that people are wondering, what is that anyway? It's when the foreskin is like pulled up over the glands of the penis, and men have a hard time pulling that back. And so it creates this area of infection potential. High moisture can get there, substances and debris can collect there as well. And of course, we kind of talked about that. This is such a hot topic. Some people are like, I am not going to get that foreskin cut off of my child at all. I see that. I understand what they're saying, and I understand they're saying, that Moses gave it as command too. So I can see this in both angles. But ultimately, I think we've got to make those decisions as parents. And with this phimosis issue, if there is a history of infections there, and I'm talking about your husband there, I would not hesitate, if it were me, and it's going to be harder for an adult to do this, to go ahead and get the procedure done. And even though it might be a little painful, it might avert a lot of infections going forward in the future for this gentleman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, I mean, you and I've stated this before. I mean, obviously there are different people have different opinions on this, and they're very, very hotly contested points of view. And we can disagree, you guys, and
Yeah.
still be friends. All right. An anonymous listener in Oregon wrote in to ask if you have any thoughts on dermaplaning razors for women's faces. Does the hair come back darker? What happens in the long term? Are there any health concerns taking the soft hairs off the skin, or are those hairs there for protection?
Well, anytime you take the hairs off like that with the dermaplaning, you're going to get a regrowth. Now, whether we like it or not, I think every lady listening here would understand what I'm saying. Sometimes the hair changes colors when you pull it off and it grows back. And sometimes it gets darker, sometimes it gets lighter, and sometimes it gets more gray. So the bottom line is, I think you got to think about the hair part of this. It might come back, and the more you do it, the less it'll come back. It's like the more you do that frequency, it's like waxing, the less follicular activity you have. A little bit of caution with this. Ladies that do it too much develop a lot of sensitivities. And I watch them many times. They end up having skin sensitivities. They get in the sun and they get a little bit more burned and all that. So there's kind of a little bit of a rub there for that with some ladies. But I do think it's a nice procedure. I know that a lot of the people that we have in the office here do that on a regular basis, and they like the way their skin feels. And anytime I'm dealing with ladies, if they do things that make them feel better, and help with self-esteem and their own self-beautification, and it doesn't cause damage, I'm all about it.
That's right. I agree. I agree with you. Like, tiptoe around that one.
Yeah.
This is an interesting question. I mean, you can always tell a guy who's been surrounded by, women.
Oh, yeah.
Because you just learn. My husband always says, as he has worked at Friendly Planet Family for a long time. And just now we're starting to get more men on the full-time staff here, but it's been mostly women. And Jay's just like, boy, I'll tell you what, it is really something being surrounded by all those women all day long.
Oh, it's
we're
crazy. Here, for years and years, I think about a decade, I was the only guy on staff. And so
you know exactly how Jay feels.
I was telling all my friends that I am an estrogen expert, man. I understand it. I've walked with many ladies through menopause and worked with them, and that's I learned a lot. It's tiptoe through the tulips all the time, right?
I love it, but you also have, like my husband, you have a shepherd's heart, and so it serves you well in the estrogen-rich environment. We have a 17-year-old asking you a question. She says, this is Michaela in Iowa. She said, I'm 17 years old and a dancer from Central Iowa. I began to have my period when I was 14, but I lost it once I got COVID in 2020. That's interesting. Mm-hmm. My parents and I waited for a while to see if it would ever come back, but it hasn't. So we sought help from a homeopathic doctor and changed to eating a paleo diet. I've been taking chasteberry, DHEA, progesterone, estrogen, many other supplements. I'm really discouraged. What else can I do?
Well, Michaela, being 17, I want to first of all commend you for asking a question and caring about your health. You are a fine, mature, diligent young woman. So well done. Hats off to you, sister, for stepping up like that. That's
Good
incredible.
job.
That's a golf clap all the way for you.
We're golf clapping for you.
Yes. The idea, though, Michaela, there could be a couple things going on. You are a dancer. That's a highly active sport. And that takes a lot of stress in the body. Now, COVID, you mentioned back in 2020, does create stress in the body, and it's not unusual for COVID people who have had that to have a little bit of intermediate interruption with the period, because there's a lot of that COVID virus that hit on the receptors in the reproductive area. So that's not unusual. But 3 years later is quite unusual. Now, with that said, I think that you're taking all the right things. You want to make sure your diet is good, so you're doing a good job there. The paleo, make sure that you're not avoiding vegetables. Keep the vegetables nice and high. Don't just eat meat and all that stuff, right? But I think the other thing to consider is this. You are a high-level athlete. The body will sometimes cease on menstruating when you're going through stress like that. I'm talking physical stress. A lot of high-level young women athletes that come through here, college professional athletes, high school athletes, their period is pretty much stopped. And it's directly tied to that physical exertion activity, which makes sense because if the body, which is just like it was 10,000 years ago, gets under stress, we're not supposed to be having babies when we're being chased by a bear. So I think that you get the idea, Michaela. And so probably take what you're taking, but I think at this point is don't over worry about it either, because it could be something that's very plausible because of your activities.
That's important. And I think, that she pointed out that she's a dancer, and this is very common in young women who are very, very physically active. And I love, too, that we've got a 17-year-old writing in to ask about her health. I think, man, I bet that girl's homeschooled. What do you think?
I think that she's probably got brothers and sisters in her homeschool class with her. I would believe that.
I think that's probably true. All right, that's all we've got time for today. We're going to come back for happy hour, though, and we're going to answer a couple other questions related to GERD, to GERD, and also a question about a mom who's saying that they're seeing a functional medicine doctor similar to you, and they're working on natural treatments with diets and supplements because her son suffers from allergies. So we're going to come back for happy hour today, talk a little bit about eczema, how to treat eczema and psoriasis, and also do some allergy conversation. Dr. Mark Sherwood, you're a national treasure. Where can people find you?
They can go to sherwood.tv/Heidi, and we have a lot of cool things there for people to have. Anything we talk about here today, you can find it. You can work with us if you want to, and there's just a lot of cool things you have access to. But we want to know where you came from, so go to the website, sherwood.tv/Heidi, and we're happy to serve you.
Also, your Kingdom Candy is back, I have to say.
I just had a peanut butter just a moment ago, actually.
I did too, actually, right before we started recording, because I didn't get breakfast this morning. So if you guys are looking for a really great nutrition bar that doesn't have all the garbage in it, Kingdom Candy is what you want, right?
Yeah, 2 flavors, peanut butter, chocolate chip, and salted caramel. You may fight over which one tastes the best.
They're both really good. All right, you guys, check it out. Kingdom Candy. Go to sherwood.tv/Heidi, and you can get in touch with Dr. Mark Sherwood. They have a wonderful team there at their clinic in Oklahoma. Dr. Mark, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'll see you back here in just a few minutes for happy hour.
Sounds great.
All right, everybody. For those of you who are curious about how to subscribe to the show, just go to HeidiSt.John.com, and there's more information about it there. You can hop on over to Spotify and click the subscribe button. Have a great day, you guys. Love your people well. Take care of that temple that God gave you. And I'll see you right back here again at the intersection of faith and culture.